Welcome to Bitter Reality Brewing. Yes, this is the top 10 tips, tricks, recommendations, hacks, suggestions, whatever you want to call them. And I know a few of you out there are like, whoa, he's bringing it back? Kinda. I'm bringing back week 37 because week 37 wasn't done and I've been working on a few. I'll probably have a week 38. Right now I'm having an Allagash North Sky. Had a burnt hickory graham cracker stout. That's really good too. I had one of those years ago and it's just amazing. But if you like Belgians, you like stouts, Allagash, either North Sky, they're black, they kind of retired temporarily, I guess. Amazing. Yep, it's another book giveaway. It's a Monday. So this is 14 new homebrew recipes, the Extreme Brewing, Sam Cologne. I kind of spun through here. I didn't want to make it damaged because this is a new book, but there's some cool recipes in here. I mean, very unique, very cool. So you know how it works. Somewhere near the end of the video, there's going to be a keyword or phrase. All you got to do is put it in the comments, and a week later, I'll pull it and see who wins. We've already had 3 people in the US. We've had 1 in New Zealand, 1 in Australia, and 1 in Belgium. So yeah, and the people who are outside the US, help everybody keep this contest going because I have to either order them a book or a Kindle or whatever I can do to get them hooked up. So that same book then goes up for draw again, which we'll do that one later that went up for last week. So keep watching. So let's jump into it. Number one, if you have any kind of brewing system with a spigot, okay, like an all-in-one, and I'm putting my anvil up here as an example. I bragged about this last time that, hey, you know, I haven't had to adjust or tighten mine for almost a full year. And that was the day it leaked. Yes, before every brew, make sure the thing's nice and snug, nice and tight. If you're not 100% sure, you can't snug it up, take it apart, clean it, make sure it's good, put it back together. You should be doing that from time to time. I should have done that a little more regularly. But yeah, number 1, check your spigot. Check your spigot. Number 2, blow off CO2 into a keg for pre-purging. And you're like, huh? What I'm saying, and I'm gonna drag this in front of my face, is use your spunding valve, put it on your keg, and then take a jumper from your pressure fermenter and run it into your keg. What you're going to do is you're going to basically be purging all the air in here. I'm not a big person on this because I don't have the space, but I get it, and I am going to eventually look into doing that and testing it out a little bit. But what you're going to do is you're gonna fill that entire keg, because CO2 is heavier than oxygen, with CO2, and you're gonna purge all the oxygen. So that way, you don't even have to purge that when you're ready to move the beer. You just move the beer and you're all good. Not a big deal. Well, we're on that subject, and let's keep on that subject for a bit. Number 3, using a balloon or apparatus to capture CO2 for cold crashing in the same container to avoid pulling CO2 into the fermenter. You heard me. So I'm not talking pressure fermentation, but just fermentation in general. If you have a little 3-piece bubbler up here and you're fermenting and you know you want a cold crash in the same container, about a quarter to a halfway through the fermentation, put a balloon on there. You may have to let some air out from time to time, may even have to, well, hopefully you don't poke a hole because that's kind of defeat the purpose, but that's what some people do. But let that balloon kind of inflate with CO2. Now, you put it in your cold crash, wherever you're cold crashing it, and what's gonna happen is as it cold crashes, that CO2 is gonna suck back in, but it's gonna be a CO2 and not oxygen. And that's something you need to be aware of, is when you're cold crashing in that same container, if it has an open container, it's gonna suck the liquid in from the bubbler, it's gonna do everything, and it's gonna pull in all that oxygen. So you gotta be careful. Number 4, and you know what? We'll bring this back. Number 4, never chill or allow a pressure fermenter vessel to chill while sealed. You could damage your fermenter, and let me explain what I did with this exact fermenter. Is I was cleaning it and I put a ton of hot water in here, and I'm putting Star Sand, PBW, and I don't remember, I think it was Star Sand at the time, and I had to go do something. And I sealed it all up because I was shaking it. I walked away. I came back about 20 minutes later. It had cooled. I had a giant dent in this thing, and I know I was able to find it before because I could still feel the bump. But I had a giant dent in my fermenter, and it could have damaged it. I was like, oh my gosh. So I immediately pulled the valve. Instead of air coming out like it just did, it went in. And I had to take the top off, reach in and pop it out. I could have damaged my fermenter. And that's something to be aware of. If you're chilling or cooling something and it's sealed, completely airtight, it could cave in and it could damage the fermenter. I have seen where people have sealed up anvils completely somehow and look like a 3-point pyramid on that thing, so be careful. Number 5, 1 gallon of water in a US 1 gallon jug doesn't actually equal 1 gallon. I know everybody's like, huh? Yeah, no. One of the big things they do, and I've seen other places do it, like when they're weighing stuff, they always weigh it to exactly what they say they're gonna give you, or a little more if you're paying for a set amount. So if you're paying for 2 pounds, they always give you at least 2 pounds. Same thing with water. You're paying for 1 gallon, they're gonna give you at least 1 gallon. I have had 1 gallon jugs. I went through one entire brew day just measuring every single 1 gallon for 2 brew systems. And I found out that it could be off by as many as 8 ounces per gallon. That's insane. That's a lot more water than I was expecting. So what I did is I bought this, so I could do 2 gallon pours at a time measuring. And then I bought this, which I can also do a total of 128 ounces, which is 1 gallon, but I can measure it and make sure and pour quickly so I'm not sitting there measuring it with a 1 cup measuring cup. But yeah, I can use something like this and know exactly how much water I have in every gallon jug or whatever I'm using. If I'm using tap water, whatever you're using for water, this will measure it out so that it's more precise, and it will help with your brewing so you'll know a little bit better of what your real brew, your boil off is, things like that. It's just something that a lot of people take for granted, that a gallon jug is a gallon of water. It's not. And I'm betting in other countries where they have 4 liters, 8 liters, whatever it may be, it's probably off a little too. So you might want to measure your water. Yeah, just double check. That way you know your numbers are correct. Number 6, refractometers were originally made for measuring the original gravity of juice. So they need to be calibrated for an adjustment that will need to be made each time you take a reading on your refractometer. You will have to look at a spreadsheet to see what the real original gravity is. Kudos going out to Brian at Short Circuited Brewers. If you haven't seen that, I'll put a link up here for you, but check that out. Refractometers, that's why no matter which one I bought, I just didn't feel it was correct and it was always off. It was because it needed to be calibrated and I needed to look at an adjustment sheet. I still am not a huge refractometer fan. I wish I could just drop a drip and be done, but there's some variance all through there and I like to be as accurate as possible, so it's just me. It's an OCD issue. Number 7, calling out the steps in a process can help ensure that you follow that process every time. I know you're like, what? Okay, if you're like me and you forget things or you skip steps because you didn't remember to do a step, what I was doing one day, because I was kind of just off and things just weren't going my way, is a good example is like on the anvil. When I was using the pump, I'm like, okay, you position, the elbow up here, you get the hose, you plug it into the spigot, you seal it, you turn it on, you turn the pump on, and you're good. Check the flow, adjust the I know, it sounds weird. Saying all that stuff out loud, I didn't miss anything. I didn't forget anything, and I did them in the right steps. People around you might think you're crazy, but you know what? At least you won't miss a step and everything will go nice and smooth. So I've been doing that from time to time, more off camera than on, of course, but I'm saying things out loud to myself, and it's helping me to remember and not miss steps. And try it. If it helps you, great. If not, it is what it is. If people look at you like you're crazy or insane, hey, bonus. Number 8, when crushing grains, remember, not all the grains are created equal. What I'm saying about that is that if you're crushing barley versus something like rye or even wheat, the wheat could be larger or smaller than your barley. Rye is almost always, some might be different, but almost always smaller than your barley. So when I do a grain crush, I do a 0.0375, but when I crush my rye, I do a 0.025. Otherwise, my rye barely gets crushed at all because it's just sliding right through the rollers and not getting smashed like it needs to be. So yeah, not all grain is created equal. Okay, keyword or key phrase, I'm gonna keep it nice and easy, but it's gonna be a long word. Extreme brewing, yes. Anywhere down below in a sentence, however you wanna put it, or just the keywords, extreme brewing. That's all you need to do, put it down below. Number 9, and this is for anyone with an all-in-one system. you have some dead space along here and on the bottom. The bottom is fine, it's the sides and how much dead space. The anvil does have pretty decent amount of dead space, and I don't know about all the systems. Grainfather's a little tighter, not quite as much dead space. But number 9, lift the grain basket at least once during the mash to circulate that dead spot and get a little bit more efficiency. Your mileage may vary, but if you haven't tried it, try it. I think you'll be impressed. Number 10, hydrometer. To make things easier to read, first, use a clear tube. Yes. Put your hydrometer in, fill it all the way to the top. And I know everybody's like, what? Fill it all the way to the top. This is the part people are gonna go, use the inside, the clean part of your paper towel. When this goes all the way up, you're gonna have a little bit of foam. Push it down so the foam is at the very top and just lightly dab it and throw it away. You're gonna find that as soon as you just dab it just a tiny bit, instantly, it's gonna be super clear. There's just nothing but liquid and no more foam. If you're really freaked out about possibly contaminating things, if you're gonna reuse that, which a lot of people don't, zap it in the microwave, do what you gotta do. But what you're gonna do is you're gonna be able to see it now much easier. And you can either use your camera phone or your phone with a camera, zoom in, take a photo and look at it afterwards, or you can take a magnifying glass and zoom in if you really have that eye challenge, which I'll volunteer for that one. And if it really helps, I have one right here, Brewing America, which I'll leave a link down below, makes a hydrometer with large print that is more spaced out. It's just much easier to read. So for us eye-challenged people or older people who have problems seeing things, those are great ways to read that. So thank you again for joining us here at Bitter Reality Brewing. Don't forget, like, subscribe, keep sharing. Definitely appreciate it. Thank you.